Hey everybody and welcome. This is Steve from OpenBOM, and in today's video we're going to be looking at what it takes to build purchase orders in OpenBOM. We're going to go from the very beginning to completed purchase orders. So this video will be a little less formal than usual. We're going to sort of do it live and take you through the process. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to just lead off with a few slides to be quick, and then we'll get into kind of the live work. This is the example of what we're building, a purchase order, and we're going to have our logos and quantities and all the things that go with a purchase order. So just to orient you, this is what we'll be building. I've got a couple of slides on process and data process. I don't want to spend a lot of time on them, but it's important that we understand where purchase orders fit into the process of OpenBOM and what the requirements are to build some. So first of all, many of you have seen this. This is right out of the help documentation. And this is how the data, the process flows through OpenBOM. We start with some design. This could be a CAD. It could be a BOM that exists already in Excel for you, or possibly nothing. We may just key the BOM in completely in OpenBOM. And a catalog. This is a list of items. These are the things that these are the parts that my company has on the shelf that we use to build our products. Catalogs are a list of items and that have information like description and cost and other things that flow into the bill of material process. So also in the catalog for each item is where we're going to associate a vendor. This is really important as we start to build purchase orders. We'll take a look at what it means to build a vendor list and how I associate that with items in my catalog. After we've finished the bill of material, we are going to create an order BOM. I'm an old school guy. We used to use the word planning BOM. Others may call it a batch. But this is where we scale up the quantities that are required to build just one product, as it is in the bill of material, up to some demand. Maybe my customer gave me an order for 250 of this particular product. It's also where we take a look at quantity on hand that's also stored in the catalog, and where we compute any shortages that you may have. If you need 200 and you only have 100 in stock, we want to make sure that we account for that. And ultimately, of course, we build a purchase order for each vendor that exists in the planning BOM. And then at your company, depending upon what you do, you may send it to your ERP system, you may send it to QuickBooks, or you may just print it out and fax it to someone, or email it. So we can do all of that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to say that I'm going to share this deck with everyone, so you don't need to really focus on these right now. You'll be able to look back at them if you wish. And this has a lot of words on it, but what this is saying is that there's a iterative process as we flow through from the beginning to the end of the create purchase order workflow. And it starts with designs and bills of materials and planning, and ultimately making purchase orders. So you can take a look at that. You can read there's some more details about how each one works specifically, but you can always take a look at that. And this is a list of essentials that are requirements for creating purchase orders. And these are the things that if you don't do these ahead of time, you're going to have trouble getting out purchase orders that you're happy with. So obviously we need to have some vendor lists, catalogs of our items, and vendors assigned to items and quantities, and then we need to start, of course, with a bill of material that has quantities and part numbers in it. And then finally we'll need to have an order BOM that we can build those purchase orders off of. And that's exactly what we're going to do in the next few minutes. Then finally, this is a process that I'm going to go through with you here now. These are just kind of my notes, but I'll share this deck with you, and you can refer back to it if it's helpful at all. So I'd like to just jump over to OpenBOM right now and get started. I'm going to put my list on my other screen. There we go. And first, I'd like to start off with what my profile looks like inside of OpenBOM. I have my profile image to have my company logo. This is where where OpenBOM pulls the image for purchase orders. So that's what goes in the upper left-hand corner. So you'll want to set up your company logo up there. And if you don't have one, we'll use the OpenBOM logo. So go ahead and set that up. And then next, I'm going to work through that list. We want to build a list of our vendors, and that is right here in our vendor lists. So over here on the left-hand side, you'll see a list of vendors. OpenBOM can manage many different vendor lists. I'm going to use the old standby, the approved vendor list. And this is the vendor list that I like to build. We give every vendor a vendor number and their name and various pieces of information about that vendor. This information will show up on the purchase order. I like to include a company logo. This doesn't present on the PO, but I find it helpful in my organization where people downstream are looking, maybe people in my purchasing department or something are looking for a particular, Acme Electronics. Well, there could be many of those. So sometimes a logo helps them ensure that they're getting the right, that they're dealing with the right company. So I just find it helpful. And then I have some other information that may or may not denote if a particular vendor is currently qualified or not. So build out your vendor list. This again is done from the dashboard. If you don't have a vendor list, you'll just want to start at vendor lists, and there's two ways you can approach this. You can say create vendor list right here from the dashboard, or you can also use the plus sign over here to add a vendor. So okay, so the first thing is we have built a good looking vendor list. Next, we'll want to have a catalog. A catalog is a list of items that are used in your company. There's a number of ways you can do that. I can, create a new catalog. Many of us will have a catalog, an Excel sheet perhaps of all of our parts. So I've chosen to use the import catalog option, and I chose an Excel spreadsheet, and I imported that into a catalog right here that is called my Global Electronics catalog. And I brought that in. Maybe I did a little cleanup on it. Sometimes there's things we like to move around, but I just imported this directly from Excel. And this has a list of all the items that we're going to be using at my company. This product that we're building right here is one of these LED tube lights that's kind of a work light. It's battery powered, has an on-off switch and some other things as well. So this is my catalog. I've set my quantity on hand for each one of these. I've also included some labor. We'll see how that affects later. I've set my quantity on hand for each one of these. I've got 100 caps and 3 of these pieces, and so on. I've also included the cost, a cost property, something I added using the add property command, or I can import that from Excel. But I've added a cost column, and I've built out this, I've included this for cost for each one of my items. And some additional things, maybe I've got a commodity code or a bin location. There's lots of videos on how to add additional data to the catalog. The important step for items in a catalog when I'm thinking about purchase orders is right here. I need to set the vendors for each one of these items. And I do that quite simply by choosing the set vendor command and then looking for my vendor list here in the list. So in this case, I'm going to use my approved vendor list, and I'll close this. So what happens, we notice that OpenBOM just added a column called vendor and another one called preferred vendor. And we'll take a look at that in just a moment. But I can go through and just start to add, I can use my mouse and click and add vendors for each one of these. I can also use some common behavior, some ribbon drag to fill some things in. So let me just go ahead and throw a few vendors in here, so we will have some, a few different POs that will be created. And like I said, I can pick from the list, or I can start typing, and OpenBOM will present me some options there. So give me just a moment, and I'll fill some of these out. Maybe this is going to come from my mold house. Here's Steve's molding. And again, I could spend some more time associating the vendors with the proper hardware types and things. And then finally, maybe this is going to come from Ranger. Okay, so I've created the vendors, and I've added the vendor for each one of the items. So you can take a quick peek at what preferred vendor is used for. If I happen to have multiple vendors for this plastic nut down here, I can use a command that says duplicate item, and I can set the vendor on this particular item to be something different, excuse me, perhaps that one's going to come from McMaster. So, and then I say, okay, I can get that from McMaster, from Granger. Granger is going to be my preferred vendor, and when OpenBOM builds the POs for you down at the end of that process, we're going to peek in here and make sure that we bring you the information for the preferred vendor. So it is a nice little way to set multiple vendors and choose which one you want in the POs. So, okay, I've opened the catalog, I've set the vendors, I've assigned set the vendor list, I've assigned some vendors, and I've set the quantity on hand for some of these. And we can see that, maybe I'll set some different values here. Okay, so what's the next thing that's really important is we need to have a bill of material. So I'm going to return to the dashboard, and now's the time I'm going to sit down and I'm going to build a bill of material for that tube light. So let's go ahead and create a new bill of material. I'm going to say this is my tube light with POs. That's going to be the name of my BOM here for demonstration purposes. I'm going to assign my Global Electronics catalog to that and create that BOM. Okay, so a new BOM is presented. I've got the properties that are coming from my catalog, and I can just now start typing things that I need. I know that I'm going to need 2 of those caps. Can add a few more items here. I know I'm going to need that 110 volt LED module, and I'm going to put in one of those, and let's add one more now. This is going to be that we can pick this from the list, or I can type it. Just type the part number in for that tube. I know we're going to need one of these. Something else that's good to do at this time is to define maybe an extended cost if I'm going to be tracking costs in my bill of material, and there's some other videos on that. This isn't required for creating purchase orders, but it's something I always like to do here, and I always set my extended cost to be cost times quantity. Okay, and we see right away that OpenBOM calculates those costs. I can see that if I change the quantity here, for example, if that for some reason was 4, we'd see the price go up there. They're 25 cents a piece. We see that price goes up to $1. So not required, but always a nice thing to do for BOMs, so I can ultimately figure out what my ultimate cost is. Okay, so we've noodled around a little bit with our BOM, and I realize there's probably some other parts that we might need to have. And I want to make sure that I have enough parts in here to get some different vendors. So let's go ahead, and you'll see that I have an error here, an extended cost, until I provide the quantity. So let's just continue to go through, and I think I'll add that, maybe that silicone phosphor, and we're going to need just one of those. And, okay. So there's a BOM. I could probably work on it a little bit more and ultimately clean it up. But this looks like a pretty good bill of material. I've got my pricing done. I've got my quantities are correct. I know that I've got my vendors assigned right here through. I've done that through my catalog, and I'm ready to build an order BOM or planning BOM. The quantities that are in this BOM are to build one of these. I just received an order from a supplier for 35 of these particular pieces. So I'm going to open up my production orders. I see that I don't have one. We're going to create a batch of 35, and this is going to be for JR Electronics. Okay. So now what we have, and this is where the next step in that process, we've created this order BOM. An order BOM is an interesting animal. This is where we start to do the math. I like to use the text wrap feature here so my properties display a little better in the top there. So here's what's going on. We have the quantity required over here. we have the quantity on hand, and then we have the quantity gap. So this is a very interesting thing to look at. So this is telling me, hey, only have 25 of these on hand. That's coming from my catalog. I know that I need 35 because we just got this order for 35. You need to order 10 of these. And this is what we call the quantity gap. So the quantity gap has been computed for each one of these. And so you can go through and see, excuse me, you can see, how this compares against what you have, what you have on hand. My vendor information came through already from the catalog, and really at this point, if I've got my units correctly and I've done a little review of my order BOM, there really isn't anything to do here other than create purchase orders. I'm going to click the create purchase order button, and down here I get a message, and I'm going to click on that, and that takes me to the purchase order area of my dashboard. And we can see right here that I've created, looks like I've got 3 different vendors in that order BOM. So let's take a look at what is going to Spacely Sprockets. Okay, it looks like I've got 2 items assigned to them. We'll see that the vendor column is no longer shown because this purchase order, and this is a purchase order, is already designed for that particular vendor. So each vendor, there's Granger, each vendor will, OpenBOM will produce a purchase order for each vendor. And likewise, any others that were in there, here's ones for Steve's Molding, and these are purchase orders for other products that I have in flight. So let's take a look at this particular one here for Spacely Sprockets. So this is saying, right now that I've got let's take a look at this LED module, for example. I see that I've got 1 of these are required. I've only got 3 on hand. I need to order 32 of those. Okay, that seems to make sense. And at this point, I've got a purchase order. I can send this over to QuickBooks if I'm using the QuickBooks integration, or of course I can send this right out to a PDF or to an Excel. And I like to turn this off and just go ahead and choose. Remember, we want to use quantity gap here. Choose some of the things that we want to send out there. And let's go ahead and export that. And we should have a nice looking PO going to Spacely Sprockets. This information is coming from my vendor information. With part number, quantity gap, that's the amount that we want to order, description, and cost. So that's it. I'm now I sent this out to a PDF right now. I could have chose to send this to an Excel, and maybe for importing into one of my other, maybe another ERP product or something. So let's say, great. So we have gone from, we went through the process. We went from this end to this end. But I just noticed something, that my purchase order for Spacely Sprockets here shows, I'm telling OpenBOM that I only need 1 of these per item. Now, if we take a look at the image, let me jump back here for a moment. Let's take a look at this guy. I see that actually I've got 3 of these LED modules for each one of these tube lights. So let's fix that. How do I fix that? Well, I start off by returning to my BOM. And I say, oh, well, I've got that set to 1. That wasn't right. I really need 3 of those. I see that my price just updated here. Let me do that again so you can pay close attention. But I went from 1 at $3. We've gone to 3, and we see that our extended cost just updated. So I made a change. Okay, I need to probably recalculate that order BOM. Let's open the order BOM dialog. Let's open the order BOM. And let's update this guy. Great. We see that that module that I was just working with, now I see that I've got 3 of them required for each item. Boy, the quantity really jumped up here. I've only got 3 on hand. Looks like I need to order 102 of those. So it's just that simple. I made that change. I'm going to click the Create Update Purchase Orders. One more time, I'm going to visit the purchase order area on my dashboard, take a look at that Sprockets PO, and we see here's our new math. Looks like we need 102 of these now. And once again, it's as simple as sending it over to QuickBooks or doing whatever our whatever the next thing is that we need, our quantity gap, get thumbnail, description, and cost. And we'll send this out finally to our PO. And get our updated PO right here. Okay, there we go. And so we see now that we need to order 102 of those. So what we did there was we just looped through this change process here to make a change back to our order. And finally, I'd like to. I'm not going to dive into it here in this video, but also the same process of using the update order BOM would be if you made a change in the catalog. Perhaps you changed the description or the price, something you can simply return to that catalog, make that change, and then flow down through the same process that we just went through with updating the order BOM and sending it out to the POs. So I hope everyone found that useful. I realize that was about 20 minutes long. Of course, there's some other information in the help, always available at support@openbom.com, and I appreciate your comments. Thanks. Bye-bye.